At the end of the book, you talk about a really interesting scripture I have read but never paid attention to. It's Revelation 21:1, and I'm dying to hear you
Oh,
talk about this because it says,
yeah.
"Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea."
Plot twist.
What happens? Does that mean when Jesus comes back, there's only land? There's no ocean?
Well, spoiler alert from the book, and it's just a very small section, so I don't mind spoiling it at all. But I don't believe it will mean that there will be no more literal sea. And the reason why I think that is because when you look at the cultural context of the what people believed at the time that the Bible was written, you come to realize that for the ancients who lived in the time when this book was written and the way that people thought about it, the ocean was chaos and destruction. It was unknown and uncertain and disorderly and confusing and unpredictable. They didn't have the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration giving them weather
Right.
forecasts. If a ship went off into the distance and never came back, you never found out what happened to it. There weren't search and rescue parties. There
Right.
weren't helicopters that could come in and rescue you. They didn't have flotation devices quite the same way we do. All these different aspects of how they viewed the ocean factored into how they reference the ocean in the Bible, which when you go back and you read some of the Psalms that talk, like we can read some of the Psalms that talk about the ocean as if it's coming from a context of lots of beauty. But in their minds, it was a place of disorganization and chaos and destruction. And that lends a different
Wow.
insight to how
Yeah.
we might understand those verses. So when I read
Yeah.
that in the recreated creation that God is going to have in his coming kingdom. When I read about that there's not going to be any sea, there will no longer be any sea. The way I interpret it as that the sea is a metaphor for the destruction and chaos and the lack
Oh,
of
wow.
peace and certainty. So in other words, there will no longer be any sea. It means there will no longer be any destruction. It's going to be peaceful and beautiful and recreated